Hello everyone, welcome to a video where I'm going to be showing you how to create a GitHub repository and push code to your new GitHub repo. So some prerequisites for this video is that you need to have an IDE of your choice installed. For me, I'm using VS Code. You need to have Git installed and you need to have created a Git account. So let's get into it. First off, this is better to do once you already have had some code created and want to store your code somewhere first. So if you don't have code written already, go write some code and return to this video. Now, have your IDE of choice opened up. For me, that is Visual Studio Code. And what you want to do is make sure that you're open to your project folder. So for me, my project folder is gym_finder because that's where my project gym finder is. But if you want to get to your project folder, you can click here up at the top. It says terminal and then click new terminal. So once you have done that, we want to make sure that we have Git installed. And so to check that, we can run the command git -- version. And this just verifies that we have Git installed and can move on to the next steps. So once we have verified this, we want to move on to creating a Git repo. And see, Git is different than GitHub because Git is the actual mechanism that allows us to have source control, which means basically we can keep track of our changes to our code base. GitHub you can think of as the platform to view all these changes to our code base and to view our source control in a nicely laid out UI. But Git is doing the main bulk of the work. So to initialize a Git repo, we can do the command git init. And so what this does is it initializes an empty Git repository in our project folder. Now I'm just going to go ahead and clear my terminal to make this easier to see. But now that we have a Git repo initialized, what we want to do is make our first commit. And what is a commit, you may ask? Well, think of a commit just as a box. And in that box, you have multiple items. And in our case, the items are files. And the box is going to be stored somewhere so you can have access to all those files. And you can run the command git status to see what files can be put into that first commit. So for me, I see app.py, requirements.txt, and my templates folder containing 2 files. So this is what I'm going to be wanting to add to my first commit. Now you may be seeing more files than me or less files than me, and that's okay. As long as you don't see a .env file, then you're okay. But if you see a .env file, that's fine. It just means you probably don't want to add that to the commit because a .env file is usually an environment variable file, and that contains sensitive secrets that you don't want in your source control. But if you don't see that .env file, what you can do is you can add all of the files to your commit by doing git add dot. And what this does, and we can verify this in our little source control icon here, but it adds all of our files to the staging area. And so the staging area is just where we can collect all the files that we want in our first commit. And what we can do now is we can make our first commit. We can title it initial commit. And I'm just doing this in this little UI here, but you could also do this programmatically if you'd like to. But I'm going to put all these stage changes into one commit. Great, we have now made our first commit, but we are not done yet. What we need to do now is we need to connect to GitHub. So in order to connect to GitHub, we can navigate to this little profile or person icon in the bottom left corner. Click it, and then you can see the option that says sign in with GitHub. So go ahead and click that. For me, I'm going to sign in as my GitHub account, and I'm going to click continue and authorize VS Code. Great. Once that has been done, we can go ahead and see that our GitHub has been signed in. Now we want to go back to GitHub and go to your home page. And on your home page, you should see a little green button in the top left corner that says create repository, or sometimes it says new repository. Click that button. Okay, here is where we can fill out a repository name. For me, I'm going to name it Gym Finder. I don't need to give it a description. For visibility, I'm going to choose public, but you can choose private if this is something for work, or if this is for a competition and you don't really want people seeing your work while you're doing it. But for most cases, you can click public. I don't need to add a README. I don't need to add a git ignore because I have no sensitive files. And license, no license, that's just fine. So you can go ahead and click create repository now. Awesome. My repository has now been created. And GitHub is nice enough to provide us some extras or some next steps to go through with. and we can either use this first set of instructions or the second set of instructions. But since we've already created an existing Git repo from our command line, we're going to use a second set of instructions that says push an existing repository from the command line. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste these commands one by one. All right, that connects our local Git repo to GitHub. This next command will rename our branch to main just for standard nomenclature purposes. And finally, this last branch is going to actually push our changes over to GitHub. So that commit that we made here, it is going to be pushed to GitHub. Great. And now if we go back to GitHub and refresh the page, we can see that our files are here. Now we can play around with the platform and look at some of the things we can see within it, such as the commit that we just made. We can click on this little one commit here, click on our initial commit, and see the files that have been changed. So that's great. And say you want to make some more changes in your code base. So say you go back here and you say, you make a change and save that change. You can see in your little source control icon, you have a new change and you can add that to the staging area. Now, normally you'd add multiple files that you've changed to the staging area over time, and then you make your commit once you're at a stopping point. But for this demonstration purpose, I'm going to add the changes to the staging area now. I'm going to make a new commit that says changed wording. And once I've done that, I can click the little checkbox that says commit. And once that's done, we can see our new commit has been made, and it is a change that's waiting to be pushed. So you can either click this button here that says sync changes, or you can use the terminal or the command line and say git push. Awesome. Now let's go back and check our VS or our GitHub. Great. We can see that we have two commits now, and if we click this, we can see our newest commit, which says changed wording and shows the edits that we've made. So thank you all for watching this tutorial on how to create a GitHub repository and push your code to that repository. I hope this helped, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Thank you.